Welcome back to A Walk in Their Moccasins. This is level 2. It's on historic tribes of Indiana. You'll find this information in your Indiana history textbook on pages 82 to 91. As we're going through, make sure you are filling out your notes and thinking about your challenge questions throughout each of the different missions. Let's first look at our important words to know for this level. There are many of them, so make sure you're filling out your notes as we go through them to finish their definitions. We have historic, tribe, clan, band, confederacy. Those are some of them. Historic means the period of time after history was written or recorded. Tribe is a group that shares the same language and same leaders. Clan is a group of closely related people. A band is a small group of people who join together to live or to work. Those three words, band, clan, and tribe, are going to sound very similar, and in a lot of ways they are similar, but they are also different in their own way as well. And hopefully you'll see that as we go through this level. Then we have a confederacy. A confederacy is a group of countries, states, or people united in a common cause. We still have some more vocabulary words. We have longhouse, wigwam, and sachem. A longhouse is a large rectangular building made from wooden poles and bark in which several families could live. Wigwam is a hut made of bark, mats, or animal skins laid over a dome-shaped frame of bent poles. And then a sachem is a leader of some Native American tribes. Let's look at our Mission 1 objective. It's to identify why the historic tribes first came to Indiana. Our challenge questions, these are located in the back of your Mission 1 notes. You'll answer them at the end. What were the major historic tribes that lived in Indiana? So there I'm looking for the names of them. Where did each tribe live in Indiana? So I'm looking for their location. Where did each tribe come from? Where did they live before coming to Indiana? Who were the Iroquois Confederacy? I want a description of who they were and what they did. And what were the two main reasons tribes migrated to Indiana? We'll go through all those. We'll answer all those throughout this mission, but it is your job to then go back and make sure that you have them answered before moving on. Here's our big question for this quest. What was life like for historic Native American tribes in Indiana, and how did they change after the arrival of the Europeans? We'll start delving into that question today. Indiana's historic tribes. Recall back from last level, prehistoric tribes were showing up in Indiana for many, many years, and that some came and some died out and some disappeared. We don't know why they were. So the tribes we're going to be talking about today, these are the ones that are showing up right now around 1680, when these new groups of Native Americans began to migrate to Indiana. We call them the historic tribes because they lived after written history began, although the tribes didn't have a written language. So you might be thinking, well, how's that? These tribes, they didn't have their own written language, but then other people had written language. I want you to be thinking, who were those other people that did have a written language? And in fact, it was the Europeans who would come later, who would meet these different tribes, and they would write down history and tradition and cultures about those tribes. So we have our records and history from the Europeans mostly because they wrote things down. The largest group, the Miami, spread out across the state along with their relatives the Wea and the Piankashaw. The Potawatomi settled in northern Indiana near Lake Michigan. The Lenape, sometimes called the Delaware, lived near the White River. That's right there by Indianapolis. And the Kickapoo settled in western Indiana along the Wabash. The Shawnee would make their home in southeastern Indiana. Here you can see it on a map of where the different tribes lived generally. Let's look about why they came to Indiana. They came to Indiana for two main reasons. One was they were looking for farmland. Indiana has really good soil, remember, from the glaciers coming down during the Ice Age, and so Indiana was a really good place for them to come to find that farmland. But then they were also forced off their homeland in other states by Native American groups and later by the Europeans. One of the most powerful Native American groups was the Iroquois Confederacy. You might have heard of the Iroquois. The Confederacy was made up of several groups that shared a similar culture and language and lived in the parts of Pennsylvania, New York, and Canada. This Iroquois Confederacy was very, very strong. They were fierce warriors and very, very powerful. After the Europeans came to America, they began to take over the land tribes had lived on for many years. Sometimes the Iroquois and the Europeans, usually the British, and we'll learn about this next level, fought together to get rid of these less powerful Native Americans. So the Europeans and the Iroquois are the group of people that were forcing the other Native Americans off their land in the eastern part of the United States and forcing them to move to Indiana, in addition to them looking for farmland. So let's learn about where these different tribes came from. Remember I said Indiana's rich soil, thick forests, and abundance of water provided good farmland for these different tribes. The Potawatomi came from Wisconsin and Michigan and would settle in northern Indiana. The Miami and their clan members came across from areas in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. The Lenape originally lived in Delaware, which is why they're sometimes called the Delaware Indians, but they were forced off of European land. To avoid the Iroquois and that powerful group, they continued to move further west, with many of them staying in Indiana. The Shawnee were driven off their land in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and would settle later in northern Indiana. So here we've seen from the past two slides, two groups of Native Americans that were looking for Indiana for two different reasons. The first, the Miami and the Potawatomi, they were looking for good farmland. We hear the Lenape and the Shawnee, they were actually forced off their land by Europeans and the Iroquois. Same thing with the Kickapoo. The Kickapoo were living in Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin before the Iroquois drove them away, forcing them to move to western Indiana. This is the end of Mission 1. At this time, I want you to go back through your notes, stop this video, answer the challenge questions, make sure that you got it before trying to take that checkpoint. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm there to help you every single day. Don't think that I'm just a voice on the computer. I'm there every day to help you. So if you have questions, please let me know. If not, I will see you in Level 2, Mission 2.